When a guest books into a BX meeting, they are automatically added to the guest Trello board, allowing our team to be alerted to the fact that they've registered and allow us to be able to call that new guest and welcome them to the BX meeting prior to them turning up. It's very important that we do this as a part of our sales process, and it helps alleviate the stress and anxiety that often a guest would feel coming along to an event for the first time. Therefore, it's very important that the process works smoothly and there's no hiccups along the way. Now, hiccups can happen when the Trello setup and process and the Zap has not been done properly, and so it's very important to check the whole process from end to end. This is how it all works in entirety. So first of all, someone comes to our website, they go to book into a meeting, so they go to locations or find the nearest meeting. They pick a location to come to, and they pick a meeting. Let's assume it's Cronulla. So they go to the Cronulla page, they decide to attend the meeting, and they register for the meeting. They pop their details in. So we're just going to pop a fake in here as well, because obviously we don't want them contacted, but we would like for this process to show us the system and work in the system. So we register them. So when they register, that will then take them through to the payment page. Obviously we're not going to process a payment for this particular person because they don't exist. However, what's happening now in the background is that person has now been pushed into dynamic sync. So that's the first thing that happens. They are now registered via dynamic sync. So in Infusionsoft, if we were to go to the campaign builder and go to Cronulla, what you would find is we have just filled out a form on our website, but that form is this form here. So as you can see, when I open this up here, it will look exactly the same as what I just filled out here. In fact, that's register your guest. The form they filled out was online registration. So this is the form that I just filled out here. Now, if we look at this back here, there's two links here: register for a meeting, which is this, which is what this is here. And then there's members click to invite a guest here, which is this form, which you'll see is actually this form here. So that's how the two forms work from the system. So you can see that they're the same form there. So that's in the Infusionsoft sequence. And so what happens with both these, you can see there's a decision diamond. So it looks first to go to assess whether this person is a guest or they're a member. If they're a member, then it pushes them into the members and removes any tags that are associated with them being a member, with it being a guest. But if they're a visitor or a guest, it pushes them through the guest sequence and it registers them through dynamic sync either way. Now what happens is you can see here the visitor tag. The team for that group get an email, a note gets applied, and two tags get applied. So visitor Cronulla and Cronulla visitor add to Trello. So there's two tags that happen. Now this Trello tag is what happens when to push it into the Trello sequence. So I'll take you through that in a second as well. Now if you look at this one here, it should do the same thing, apply two tags, and it should be the visitor tag and the Cronulla visitor add to Trello. So now it has those two tags applied, it either gets added to dynamic sync here, if it's been added by a member on the first link, or if they've just registered themselves online, it pushes them up here and they get registered for the Cronulla event there as well. So there's two places that can work, but both of them push into dynamic sync and get registered. So here's Cronulla here. If we go and have a look at Cronulla, we'll see that process has pushed them into the Cronulla event. And we can see here test person 1. So they're in this process here, which means that now automatically applies a tag. So when anyone ever registers for an event in Dynamic Sync, a tag is applied automatically. So Dynamic Sync creates that tag and pushes that back into Infusionsoft. So when they're in Dynamic Sync and registered, a tag applied, and that tag is this tag, which is the registered for event, BX Networking Cronulla registered. So it pushes them into this sequence here, which sends them the you've been registered confirmation email, and that's what we've set up for here. So that's the email that says, you've been registered, here's the details, etc. So that's that email there. So then the other element is in Zapier, we have a whole bunch of zaps for guests. And so when a guest books in and that tag's applied, it then kicks off another sequence, which is the guests for Cronulla. And so what happens is, as you can see here, the trigger is Cronulla visitor add to Trello. Now, only trigger the first time any of the tags should be false. So I've noticed in a couple of them, it doesn't have this applied. This is a new thing, and some have true, but it should be false. So it should be any time that tag's applied, because if that guest books into another location somewhere else, or books in to this location 2 months, 10 months later, we want them to add into this. So it pushes them down through the sequence here. And then what happens is it creates an action and pushes the visitor board here, TL to call Cronulla, creates a card, and does all this process here. So now when we go to Trello and go to the Cronulla board and the guest board for Cronulla, you'll be able to see that test person 1 exists on this board, and it's got all the checklist, it's got all the information about that person that's there, and it's all done. So what I'm going to do is I'll archive this now because it doesn't need to happen. So that's the process for when a guest books in. Now, what the team do from here is, when that person turns up, they'll go through the process of, making them have a great meeting, and hopefully they'll join. If they do join, they'll move them to the joined column. This is a checklist for our admin team to ensure that anybody in this list has a form received, and that should match the Excel wrap-up. So the Excel wrap-up should have for Cronulla, for that particular location, that says there's 4 guests joined over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guests joined. One might be from a previous meeting, but this person looks like it's from a different date. So the most important thing is for our team to cross-check between these elements here to make sure that we're matching back and having the correct information. Now, once that's done, when our team add them into the system, so when our admin team add Marino's application into the system, Marino should be copied across to the other Cronulla boards. So over in the other Cronulla boards, we have the, just jump back to, so we have the member engagement and the member nurturing. So in the member engagement, we should be able to see Marino in the member engagement. So if we look down here, Marino should be there. So I can't see Marino anywhere there. So Marino should have been copied over across to the last meeting. Marino should also be over here. So he is. So member nurturing Cronulla. So I can see that Marino's been moved to the member nurturing, but he hasn't been moved to the member engagement. And what can happen here is that this can affect Marino being followed up and checked in with and engaged upon for future meetings. So what should happen here is 2 things should happen for each guest. So we should be going to copy. We go to copy to member engagement. Present at last meeting. We can take away the checklist now because the checklist is not important for member engagement. We leave it on there for the nurturing, but not the engagement. And we create the card. And then we go back to the member engagement and we'll be able to see him here. We'll get rid of this due date here as well. We don't need the due date, and we'll make the label a regular because he's now a regular member of that group, and he should be moved up the top with the other regular members. And so then we should check that back against each of the people here. Now, once that fortnight has passed, the team will actually archive all these at the beginning of the next meeting, but they'll sit there for the next 2 weeks so we can cross-check that information. And that's the process for when a guest comes through for registration, all the way through to the signing up part of the meeting, what our admin team do. It's really important this process works properly and that you test your elements all the way along the way when you're setting up a new board.